This episode of Super Boothers is brought to you by PB Backdrops. Get anything you need for your photo booth business, like featherless boas, custom pillow cover backdrops, retractable banners, and much more. Visit their website at pbbackdrops.com and use promo code SuperBoothers10 at checkout for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Super Boothers. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Ismail.
Hold on, let me go. Oh,
Uh-oh.
Yeah, here we go.
What is that,
Ladies,
a Diet Coke?
No. That was not a Diet Coke. No, Kittles. Today we have Steve Behen and Bill Vahrenkamp from Imaging Spectrum. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hey, good to be here.
Can you hear me now?
Yay! Can you hear me now? We had a little bit of technical difficulties earlier, but we're good now. Guys, how are you?
We are
Doing
wonderful. The weather's nice. Yeah, I don't think we ever asked what kind of beer he was drinking.
I know. I was curious.
I said, Ryan, I asked you if you were drinking a Diet Coke. You said no.
It's not a Diet Coke.
But what kind of beer is it?
A
beer one.
This is water.
Oh, even better.
Oh, nice.
Or sparkling water.
Yeah.
Yes.
All
Sparkly,
right,
just like my personality.
Excellent.
Really excited to have you guys on the show. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, Ryan pulled out. He's never pulled out the beer before, but he finally pulled out the beer.
That's good.
I know he's saying it's water.
It's a printer beer. Whenever stuff doesn't work, you just kind of have to pop one open and then trust it works.
I've done that
So
before.
we've been through a myriad of technical difficulties, including me smacking my mic, but finally we're up and running. And I guess the way I'd like to start the conversation is you guys have been around at all these conferences. You do all this education. What are the most common things that people come to you with in questions or problems? Like, what are the most common issues that people seem to bring up with you guys?
Well, I'll start real quick here. I'll tell you the most common problem is people not plugging their printers into the same port every time, or having the new Windows 10 updates love to crash the drivers. So it's usually something about ports or drivers, one of those two, or bad cables. So that's and they're all kind of related. They all have to do with the peripherals, the things we plug into the computer.
So this sounds like a basic thing. I guess you're saying best practices is always plug it in the same port. Even if you have multiple USB ports, plug the printer into the same port
That's
every
correct.
time.
Even I, who know how to fix it, always plug everything into the same port every time. That way, because Windows is, especially with printers, Windows, because, most people only have like one, 3-in-1 scanner printer at their house, but they may have 4 or 5 dice subs. And so the drivers know that. So if you plug it into a different port, it thinks it's a different printer. It doesn't know to go out and look at the serial number and realize it's the same printer. It thinks it's a different one, so it adds another copy of the driver. But the problem is most softwares, you point to the original one, and if it's copy 1, it doesn't realize that.
I don't know about you, but I always plug it into the same port.
Yeah, me too. Again, even though I know how to fix it, I still always plug it into the same port. It's just easier.
Yeah, not everybody does. I've seen copy 2, copy 3, copy 4,
7,
copy 5. Yeah, and you go in and you go, oh my goodness, we got to get rid of these.
Yep. And people that have hubs, if they have four plugs in their hub and they have 4 plugs on their computer, that means they could have 16 different printers. Seriously. So.
And for people who've listened to the show, they know that Ryan and I are not really the hardware people, so I'll probably ask some really stupid questions. And these
there are no stupid questions. No.
These are like very basic things, but I'll admit I'll go back to the very beginning of our business. And I remember there was one event where we were all set up and things weren't working and we're panicking. Like, what is wrong? Everything looks fine. And it was just a loose cord. Like one of the cords that were
very
it was
common.
Just, it looked plugged in, but it really wasn't plugged in. And
Yep.
the sigh of relief once we figured that out and plugged it in, we're like, oh, great, because we were checking all the more complicated issues, but oftentimes it's the more simpler stuff that's not correct.
Oh, and something that's sneaky is dirty power. And then you can end up breaking ribbons, and that's another ghost in the machine. But yeah, you got to have clean power for sure.
The other main issue you said was the Windows updates. What's the real way to avoid that problem from cropping up at events?
Have a Mac
Well, pretty much. Yeah, here's the real funny thing about Windows is there are so many hacks and so many problems. I'm not 100% sure there's an actual way to turn off the updater in Windows 10. I don't think there is. I've not been able to do it. But one of the things you can do is either not get on the internet, but the problem is people need to get on the internet. They upload photos and stuff like that. There is a way to go into the computer and say, oh, Tuesday night at 12 o'clock midnight is the best time to update it. The problem is they need to have their computer online and on at 12 o'clock on Tuesday night, because otherwise it's just going to update it the next time they turn it on. Um, about 6 months ago, I was at a gig, and at 8 o'clock at night, my computer just shut down and went to update. I thought I was going to come unglued. Fortunately, I had a backup computer. I was back up in 5 minutes. The client didn't even know I had that issue, but I was furious because again, I thought I had it turned off. So
That's amazing.
anyway.
That's amazing that that's such a big issue. Like everyone seems to be posting about that, and everyone seems to encounter that, and there's no real clear solution. I guess you avoid the internet, or you update it at a time when you're not at an event, or you actually just use a Mac, like you said. That's probably the three
Yeah,
solutions.
the tough thing is there's not a lot of good Mac software out there, so that's not a great solution because even if you're using Parallels and running Windows on your Mac may not update, but your Windows portion will. What I do is if I turn my computer on Friday and I upload or do something with it, I turn it off and then turn it back on again because sometimes it downloads the updater and it waits till you turn it back on. So again, if you're gonna get online anytime late in the week, shut down the computer, then turn it back on, see if it updates, then turn it back off. Because then it shouldn't do it at your gig unless you happen to have it set to do it on Saturday night.
So I have a question. So we were talking about, I guess, like new things to do in printing, and one of the things I saw was like a massive like photo strip.
Yes.
Oh, that's
What's
just
that
so
about?
that's just the craze. I'm not kidding. And as we've shown that at shows and at PBPI, was the last one we did. And God, what a great I have to say, what a great platform for education. But yeah, people just went bananas over it. And we tell the story of how we have customers out there doing upsells with it, and how they're making some really good profits on it when they know how to sell it. And people are starting to feel it and get it and make money with it. And it's just, one of the things with dye sub printing over the years is this is something that dye subs were really not capable of doing before. And the manufacturers found, hey, this could be something they may be interested in, and tossed it out there, and it just took off. And it's just been crazy. So, yeah, really, really cool. Very cool.
Yeah, 6 years ago, because I'm a 36-year wedding photographer, and I've had my booth for a little over 8 years. But we were photographing a mayor's daughter's wedding 6 years ago, and he wanted something bigger than a 2x6 or 4x6. And I said, well, we can do three 4x8s on 8x12 paper on a DS80. So 6 years ago, I actually did my first gig with 4x8 strips. And then when the DX100 from Fuji came out, and it could do anything up to 39 inches long, we did a couple of gigs last year with 4x8s and 4x12s, including a brewery in Fort Worth who loves us. Yay! Because they get pissed off if you don't drink beer while you're running your booth.
Well, keeping in mind too that on a 2x6 strip, you throw a few people in there, and people's heads are like the size of a pencil eraser. I mean, unless it's tightly shot, cropped right, it really gives the end user a chance to see, the details in the photos. And it's just that much more impact. It's like, how many people have a 20-inch TV in their living room these days? Not very many. I mean, we're in a world now where everything is big, TVs and displays.
Bigger is
and
better.
yeah, super size, man. And so it just goes along with that whole thing. you know.
So how were, like, Bill, on those events that you did with the bigger strips the first time, how were they received by people?
Oh my
Oh, they
gosh,
love
people
them.
loved them. Now, and that wasn't because, and it wasn't because they were drinking. So we did a 4x8 for them the first time, and then they hired us for their anniversary. Oh, what an honor! And they wanted the even bigger strips. We did 4x12s. Now we could have done 5-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch wide paper with the DX100, but the good news about the 4x8s and 4x12s, they still don't look bad on the fridge. The new ones, the 6x14s and the 6x20s, that the 620 from DNP and the 90 DW from Mitzi have, they're just really big. I mean, they have some really wow factors. The only problem with the 6x14 is you can probably only get about 3 photos on it, but the 6x20s you could get more, and they look good horizontal and vertical. I mean, obviously horizontal you could probably only get 2 or 3 photos on, but anyway, just something that stands out, because people are getting to the point where, well, gee, I went to the so and so wedding, 6 months ago. We want something with more wow. What you have?
Mm.
Well, I got these really big photo booth strips. Oh, okay, that's great. So anyway, so it's a good
The only
sales
thing
tool.
is the quality has to be like super 10 times. Like you can't really pull that off with an iPad booth.
Yeah, it does. It does require
Well, that and
resolution, and that's really it. I mean, it does have to be, anything that's less than stellar on the front end is going to show up on the back end. You can only doll it up so much.
One thing I like about Imaging Spectrum as a customer is that the knowledge that you guys are willing to share and the helpfulness of people. Like, I remember when I was trying to decide between printers, you guys actually sent a pack of samples of all different printer printouts.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to take a step back. Like, can you lay out the landscape of the printer, the differences between the DISA printers, the other printers? Like, what's the different layers of the printers out there if people are considering, getting a different kind?
Bill,
sure.
go ahead.
I mean,
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So here's the thing about DISA printers. They're basically 3 color panels: cyan, magenta, yellow, and then they have the clear coat. So they basically lay down. Also about the print heads, and I like to tell people this analogy. So 300 DPI. What that really means is there's basically 300 little light bulbs every inch. That the light bulb gets brighter or darker, and the brighter and darker that it gets, the more of the ink embedded in the ribbon, it basically injects it into the paper when the print head goes across it. So that's kind of basic way of how it works. But the cyan, magenta, and yellow, they lay the layers on top of each other, so they're what's known as continuous tone. If you look at a dye sublimation print under a magnifying glass, it's all smooth. If you look at any inkjet printer under a good enough magnifying glass, you will see dots, because that's how the inkjet works. It puts dots down. So that's why dye sub and inkjet, the dye sub is always going to be a little sharper in some ways because it doesn't have any dots.
So
And also it's dry.
That's really helpful. So off the bat, you're saying in almost every case the dye sub's better than inkjet.
It depends on what you're putting down as a marker for quality. Inkjet has the ability
Right.
to capture a color gamut that and the level of accuracy in reproduction. Inkjet has the ability to do that. Dye sub does have a cap on it. It can only do so much, and that's really where inkjet starts to shine. Now, that kind of transitions into the Fuji DX100, which has kind of found its way into the booth world with a lot of the higher end booth companies where, they, even though it's a bigger printer, the technology that's in it was born in a $30,000 lab machine. And what they've done is brought it down to street level where it's actually portable. So if you can just carry a little more weight, the thing is amazing. You can do 4-inch wide prints, 5-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch. And by the way, the monster strips on 4-inch paper that's my favorite size. But in terms of quality, the DX100 is going to do a better job than dye sub does. But dye sub has this kind of legacy in the event world, whether you're coming off the log ride at Six Flags or you're in the Empire State Building and you get a keepsake photo or whatever. that's pretty much a dye sub world. They're built for low cost per print, fast printing. But I'll tell you what, inkjet's kind of changing the game a little bit with Fuji and the DX100, and it's dry when it comes out. And it's not crazy expensive like, consumer printers. So, man, I just, there's a big difference in the technology, but the DX100 is going to win with quality. No doubt about it.
I have a question. So
sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, sorry. I kind of meant under a magnifying glass. The dye sub's always going to be sharper because it doesn't have dots. So that's really kind of more where I was heading with that. And after I said, I was like, that may not have made sense, but that's what I was referring to. So sorry about that. Go ahead.
So the question that I have really comes down to, you kind of brought it up a second ago, is a consumer printer. So for example, most people that get started, whenever I guess they purchase a photo booth, or, they're, cherry picking, I want, this iPad, this ring light, this whatever, this particular camera, this particular software. The easiest thing to do is, well, I'm going to run to Best Buy and I'm going to get a Canon selfie. Mm-hmm. Well, I think Canon's a good brand. They're putting out this printer. What's the difference between a Canon selfie and, I guess, like a higher capacity dye sub printer? Because a selfie is technically still a dye sub.
Well, I'm pretty passionate about this topic because consumer printers like that were never built for the kind of utility that you're going to put them through in a professional output environment. And so while they'll produce a pretty picture, and let's look at like passports, right? Canon selfies are used in passport printing as well. So they'll do a nice picture, but you have to load in very small quantities of paper. You have to babysit them. They're also known for breaking down frequently when they're put under a lot of load like that. So I don't know. I'd say a matter of utility would be number one. The quality on it is nice. I mean, you can't deny that. But Bill, why don't you take off running with the rest of this one?
Yeah, I mean, the Canon selfie, like Steve was saying, it doesn't hold a lot of media. It's a lot slower. I mean, it could take, if you're wanting to do, 2 or 3, 4x6 prints for a client, you would not be able to print those on a selfie before the next group was done. So, and you really need a bank of them. You'd probably need 3 or 4 of them to even come close to keeping up at a gig. So it's just, again, not, they're not designed for heavy duty use like that. They're really designed more for grandma to print off, 3 or 4 photos of their grandkids that, they just got sent. Or even in the passport industry, a lot of these passport places, they may do, a couple of passport photos an hour, but they're not doing, a photo session every 45 seconds, like obviously we can in the photo booth industry. So
I've seen people use those more as backups, like as an emergency backup that they can carry to an event. Like you said, it may not be enough to really handle all that utility, but just having it as a backup, I think some people, I've seen them do that.
Yeah, we have too. Yeah.
So it sounds like we're talking about quality between those two different kind of printers, but there seems to be a lot of other variables that come up when you're trying to pick what printer you want for yourself. Like I remember I actually switched all of our printers to the 620A, and I remember the more important thing for me was speed. I wanted the quality to be good enough, but the speed and the portability to me was important. I don't know if there's any other variables that people kind of
there
bring
definitely
up to you guys.
is cost per print, for example. I mean, cost per print a lot of times, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but let's look at the way, if you look at the weight of a printer, it wasn't too many years ago when most of the printers were 50 and 60 pounds. And it's not uncommon to get an old timer on the phone or somebody that isn't necessarily, they wouldn't say they were strong, but they'll say, I've got tennis elbow or I've got a bad back and I really want something lightweight. And that's been a huge change in the industry over the last 7 or 8 years. It's just things just keep getting smaller and smaller. And even the look of the printer, it's real interesting when I'm doing consulting and we're on the printer comparison chart and I'm taking the customer through the different printers. And I've actually had someone tell me, I don't like that one, that's ugly. So, let's face it, you don't have like Corvette red to choose from, or, flamingo pink, but, sometimes even the color of a printer, the look of the printer, it's kind of like going on a car lot, right? And our job as a consultant would be to try to make them aware of all those variables, and even warranty. Like, wow, another thing that's crazy now is they're starting to make 3-year warranties standard. So when you bought your 620s, that came with a 3-year warranty. That's crazy. So that's even different between printers these days. So, there are a lot of factors. They're not all the same. And that's all a part of it. So
not all printers are created equal.
Nope, they are not.
They are not.
Well, I'd almost kind of think it's almost like dating. Like, this printer does this printer takes too long. This printer goes too fast. This printer's too big.
This printer makes
Why don't we stop this game before we get in trouble?
Here's a good one. Like, this printer's too loud, right?
No, that's that's not.
Oh, God.
The usual comparison I try to make is, okay, the difference between a Mitsubishi K60 and a 70DW. Well, it's kind of like the Toyota and the Lexus.
Yeah,
that's what I kind of use the car analogy.
Well, but that's the thing is, like, the reason why I say it's almost like dating is just because it's just everyone's personal preference, whether they use Mitsubishi or a DMP or whatever the hell these things are called. I mean, it's always it's taken me a while to figure out. Actually, there's going to be a little video coming out where Ismail and I did a tour of Imaging Spectrum's warehouse in Dallas, Texas. So much fun. But whenever we went through there, I really had a moment where I was like, oh my God, the very first printer that I ever used was there. And I guess it was a Sony. And I remember that thing. Yeah. It took maybe I don't know, 15 seconds to print, 20 seconds to print, something like that. And we thought it was
the UPCX one. Yep.
Yeah, and we thought it was the fastest printer that you had ever seen in your life,
which we still have available and refurbished, so you can still buy it.
And I can't wait. I can't wait to get back to it.
So one thing that kind of struck me when we were doing that tour is the high level, like the quality of the people there. And there's a lot of very intelligent people working at Imaging Spectrum. I'm curious to hear, how do you guys view the market trending to more digital? Is that a concern? Is that a risk for you guys? How do you guys view that?
Well,
do you guys think that's a good thing, a bad thing?
Look at printers
What's the perspective from your
digital?
end?
But this is all digital, and so in terms of social media, in my opinion, the print has never had a higher value because it's actually so rare to get them. And it's really good to have them. Entire generations of images are being lost now. Let's just take someone on your block where you live, and they go on a cruise and they take pictures with their cell phone. They go to a kid's birthday party, they take pictures on the cell phone, take pictures at Christmas time or whatever. Cell phone gets lost or stolen or gets dropped in the toilet, whatever, and they haven't backed it up. Those images are gone. And they're not something you can hold on to. You're not putting it in a shoebox. And unfortunately, and this has happened in my family, I always tell my kids, I'm like, back up your phones, back up those pictures, back them up, because they could just be gone in a minute, And so the print actually has value. And what's really cool about digital delivery versus, something you can hold in your hand is we're in this visual world we live in. It's just crazy. I mean, we're surrounded by stimulus all the time, and it's just one more way to deliver. So, there's something about having that in your hand and being able to have that as a keepsake, or something that you can place some value on, and that's really as valuable today as it was when, before I was born, right? I mean, when people's homes are destroyed by floods or whatever, what's one of the first things they want to go find?
The photos.
Yeah. I mean, you don't say, oh, I'm going to go try to save my TV. Well, yeah, you probably will. But in the rank and file of things, I mean, wedding albums and stuff like that, there's just something to be said for that. And I don't think that's really changed. I think when you hear stories about someone doing an event and people were leaving prints laying around, I think, well, they didn't make it unique enough for them, and, it's about quality. That's why, there's mind blowing templates out there. There's good lighting and bad lighting. There's, good booths and bad booths. And it really, if you've got something really special and unique, and a lot of times that translates into something custom, that you could place a very high value on that, whether it's a printed piece or whether it's digital delivery.
I will say this: I did a wedding maybe about, I don't know, like 8 years ago, and there was a particular client where we were going over back and forth on whether or not she wanted to do, I guess, have a videographer, and I was just like, you could do it, you could not do it, it's entirely up to you. Like, didn't really push it. She was like, you know what, let's go ahead and do it. She did a videographer, and we also did a photo booth back when it was only printing. There was no digital delivery, and the grandmother took a photo. The grandmother, I guess the videographer had got video of her in the photo booth, and she was pushing the button and really enjoying like using the booth. The grandmother passed away about a month after the wedding.
Wow.
And it was the last photo that they had of her.
Wow.
The same thing happened to me. My cousin, actually, it was my aunt and uncle's. It was their 50th wedding anniversary. I'm sorry, 25th. I haven't been married that long. It was their 25th wedding anniversary, and I brought my massive photo booth with its huge, disgusting tent enclosure that smelled like sweat and drunk people, and it was getting family together. Whenever you do it for yourself, you realize how often, it doesn't happen that often. My cousin was hit by a drunk driver a couple weeks after that.
Wow.
So there is absolutely, and those were the last photos that everyone had of him. So I will say that there is something very special about printing.
Well, and so let me.
Just
one at a time, ladies. One at a time.
Hold on. I'm going to jump in here real quick because this is something that I think booth owners, as categorically, really need to learn the art of. And when I started with Kodak in the late 1980s, we were taught to sell what I've always called selling visually. And the stories you just told, those are that's something that if you're a booth owner, you need to be able to attach your client emotionally to what you're going to offer. And those examples that you gave me are the perfect way to do that. That's real life, right? And so,
honey, I sell. It's
yeah.
what I do.
I mean, that's it. And so, but you'd be surprised, if someone.
I just sold every person listening to this to buy a
Yeah,
printer
I mean,
now.
but if someone says no, you know what? If we're going to save $50 by we don't want prints, we'll just do digital. And it's like if you do 250 prints at a job, that's only costing you $30 as a booth owner, right? And so, especially if you're talking 2x6 strips or 4x6s, and you're thinking, God, they don't need to know that your cost is only $30. But if you take the upsell opportunity and you can attach them to the value, what an easy way to add some incremental revenue to your gig. But that's all I had to say on that topic. But a lot of people don't know that art of how to sell photographs. They just don't know how to do it. They don't come from the background that a lot of us, people like Bill and I in the industry, some of these people, they could be real estate agents during the week and they have photo booths on weekend, or they're plumbers or whatever. And no one's ever taught them how to do that. But that's a huge part of selling.
Absolutely. I think that the whole selling part here is people make this mistake all the time by like trying to sell quality. You're stupid. Don't sell quality. You're selling what the emotion of what it is capturing. Yeah. And that's truthfully, I mean, it is one of those things to where, you don't you're going to bore your client if you talk about, oh, well, this printer prints, 8 seconds faster than this other one. And, this I don't know, printer tray lights up, or I don't care about that. I mean, but but that's the thing, is that like selling the emotion of this and what they're going to get and what they're going to remember after the fact. That's how it should be.
Oh, and the hip term now is, it's an experience, and it certainly is, and it always has been. That separates the pros from the amateurs, same thing with DJs. Anyone can open up a Mac and plug it into some speakers and call themselves a DJ, but we all know it's much more than that. And same thing with photography, and that's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah, just real quick, just in recent, history, from now on, we're going to tell people, listen, when the crock pot burns your house down, get your photos out. I'm just saying.
You know what's yeah, no, that's actually the number one cause of fires.
on some shows it is. So
I think.
This is us. Yeah.
What is that? This is us.
Yeah, that really did happen on the show, but it was
happened.
interesting because he saved his family. Then he went in to get the photos.
Oh,
and he, died from smoke.
Spoiler alert! I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, I haven't either.
That's why.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
There are now hundreds of angry listeners.
Sorry.
No, you can't say that. I got in trouble for saying that word.
You know what I find ironic is that
I think I said it too.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
You know what I find ironic about today's digital age is that people are really obsessed with taking pictures. Like, there's a lot more digital photos taken. Mm-hmm. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well,
but people don't really spend a lot of time looking through photos.
The way they go ahead.
One
Bill.
of the things
go
in
ahead.
the photo. Yeah, one of the things in the photo industry, I was just at the PPA, the Professional Photographers of America convention last month in Nashville, and one of the things that those of us on that side of the industry talk about is, if we're not careful, we're going to have an entire generation in 50 years with no photos of themselves because they were all digital. They never printed them. The cloud is still digital. They don't, if they don't keep them with them and don't print them, those photos are going to be gone, and there's just going to be no photos of them. And in fact, there's a part of the PPA and other DNP's in it, Fuji's in it, a lot of the photo labs, and it's called the print movement. It's just reminding people to print, So, and one of the things that we tell our brides, that the photo booth is supposed to be a party favor, and therefore you should print because it's supposed to be a party favor, something you can put in your guest's hand to remind them when they look at it on their desk or the refrigerator, oh my gosh, that wedding was so much fun. The cake was delicious. The bride was beautiful. The photo booth was a blast. The send-off was immaculate. So again, it's those things to stir memories.
A couple burning questions that I have still written down. In the position that you guys are in, as a leader in the industry, do you have any sense or anything you can share with the audience about the size of the market or any insight into the market and what's changing with the market? Anything that you kind of see from your
a lot of
tower
people are blown away, when you talk about printing. And I think it's just like we had the people from PBPI, we bust them over to our warehouse to feed them all and have a good time and socialize. But people are really blown away by the warehouse. And it's like we sold 6,000 die subs last year. Is that crazy? And a lot of people just don't grasp how big the event imaging industry is. It's gigantic. It's everywhere. It's every place you turn your head. And
do you have an idea of like how many booth companies there are out there? Is it like 10,000, 20,000? Or is that not something
that's so crazy? I don't think anyone really has a handle on that because, it's just like PPA. And Bill, you could probably speak better along these lines than me, but there's no real guiding hand in the industry. It's like, if you look at the Professional Photographers of America or some of these organizations, WPPI, they've put a lot of money into big research, and they've got numbers, whether it's Nikon or Canon or whatever. There's just a lot of data out there. But when it comes to the photo booth industry, it's relatively small. I mean, in the bigger picture, and even though we've watched it grow insanely to the point of There's some people are saying it's saturated. I tend to agree with them, but it's really amazing at how many images are captured and how much of it's out there. It's just insane. It's crazy, but no one really has a hand on it. I just think it's because there's no guiding hand. There's no real, we don't have a PPA or WPPI or Imaging USA level of, an organization guiding it with all that survey data just for the booth industry. Bill, you want to comment on that? I mean, in terms of your thoughts?
Yeah, there's definitely hard to find data. We don't exactly know how many.
Yeah, 6,481.
How many operators?
No, and hey, so there you go. So that's just us. Now, keep in mind we're one channel partner of many in the industry, and then you've got worldwide. I mean, it really is incredible. The amount of data that's captured and pictures taken every day, and it's. Look at all the new industries that's come up. I mean, for goodness sakes, have you seen the new iPhone commercial? I mean, for X, it's crazy, those beautiful portraits. And, the quality of the cameras in iPhones and iPads and stuff, it's just amazing what they've been able to do. Whoever would have thought that you'd have a little sensor and a little lens that's not even the size of a pencil eraser, capture the quality it's able to do today. I mean, it's just...
I know. Just take a look at my Instagram.
It's insane. I love your Instagram.
Yeah, that's something I try to kind of drill down into with anyone that's a leader in the industry, and it just doesn't seem like there's any real insight into how many companies there are, how many boothers there are out there. It's really hard to come by, but I'll keep trying.
And in a lot of industries, gathering data can be tricky because are these people telling the truth or not? And that can be one of the tricky things in all industries trying to gather information. But, as far as how many booths are there out there, what is their starting price? What is their highest price? And because that's something we're seeing a lot of, on some of the sites on Facebook is, gee, what are some of these Groupons and what are some of these companies starting at? I mean, it's when we see double digits, that's like, oh my gosh. So, that's always my concern. We don't want to see the photo booth industry become just kind of, gee, $50, get someone there. That's not what we want. We want it to be a great photo, a great
Steve
experience,
will do it for $50.
No,
great
no
souvenir.
Way. No, not me.
So y'all are going to be.
I'll do a lot of things for $50, but that's not one of them.
Speaking of $50, I'm going to see y'all in Vegas now.
Yeah, PBX.
So what are y'all doing for the show in Vegas?
Well, I don't know how much we can talk about yet. So, but we're going to have our giant booth again. We're going to have printers. We're going to have a lot of new stuff. We're going to be showing some cool things because we also want to show not just how to do photo booths, but also just a little smidge on some event photography, some new stuff coming. Because what we want it to be is, because we want our clients to ask, and when I'm talking about our clients, I'm also talking about mine and my wife's photography company, Albertex Photo. We want them to ask, gee, what's new? What can you do? What's different? What can you do that the Finkelsteins didn't do at their bar mitzvah? So we want to be
keeping up with
those Finkelsteins always trying to be ahead of us. God.
Or the Smith.
Absolutely. Yeah, or the Smiths, but the Smiths don't have a lot of bar mitzvahs, so. Anyway, so we want to have something new, something wow, and of course, for Tanya and I, for my wife and I, for our photography company, we like the big prints. We like to be able to push that. And one of the strategies I've always kind of had is, the three bears. Do we have these really giant strips? We have these medium-sized strips, and we have these tiny strips. So which one do you want? Well, they go for the middle, and so you price it right. The starting price is pretty low. That medium price is nicely priced, and then the other one's just crazy. And again, they go to the middle. Three bears, too hot, too cold, just right. Too hard, too soft, just right.
So we'll have Ryan to kind of build on that. We're going to have several shooting stations We'll have a mirror actually in the booth, and with darkroom software running on it. So, and that'll be printing pano prints as well. So we'll have a little bit of everything. We try to show literally the entire output portfolio we have on display there. And one of the things that's really popular at PBX, at least with us, has been our printer bar. And so we bring one of everything. And, it isn't very often, depending on where you live and what your local, not everybody lives in Los Angeles or New York or Miami or Dallas. So some of these people come in and it's their first time seeing live all the different output options, and they just come up and they're like, oh, I've seen pictures of this, or I've heard about this, or, this is what I want to buy. After they look at it, you tell them all about it. And so the printer bar is very, very popular. And the shooting stations are nice because we get to show off the software and show the new features and stuff like that. So it'll be a lot of fun. Plus all the fun with you guys, right? Yeah.
I love it. I can't wait.
We're going to burn the midnight oil. We're just going to get freaky.
I will be in bed by 8:30.
No sleep.
After you burn the midnight oil,
I'm the oldest one here at 56. I probably will be in bed at 8:30.
8:30 on Thursday.
8:30 a.m.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us. We had a ball.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing you guys in Vegas.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week. Please come see Imaging Spectrum and Darkroom Software in Vegas, March 11th through the 14th at the Westgate Hotel and Casino. We will be there as well. We can't wait to see everyone. Tickets are available at photoboothexpo.com. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next week.